All right, so we're here in Danbury, in my neck of the woods, and I'm talking to one of the individuals who is running for a very competitive seat here. Of all the races in Danbury I'm watching, two of the races I'm watching is one in the state Senate 24, and the other one is in the 138. And here is somebody who I know quite well because a year ago, at this time a year ago, we were at a PTO forum. In fact, you were one of the candidates at the PTO forum. And I said that you gave one of the best performances there of all the candidates. You informed everybody about you were very informed about all the topics. You articulated your case very well, and you won. And now you are the chairperson of the board of ed, but you're also now running for state rep.
Yes,
So
yes.
I guess you like campaigning a lot.
I do like talking to voters for sure. I do enjoy serving. I've just found a passion for it. I've been on the Board of Education for over 4 years, almost 5 years now. So it's been an honor to serve. I remember that forum like it was yesterday.
I remember how intense it was at times.
It was very intense, and it was, political at times too. And I wanted to talk about the progress we've made over the time that I did serve, and the work that I wanted to continue to do on the board. And now I'm looking to serve, bring my service and my experience and knowledge to the next level, to the state level, and be an advocate for all of us there.
Now, one of the things I liked at that PTO forum was the way you had your facts and figures on topics, especially when it came to education. So we'll have a lot of fun today talking about education because, it's one thing to talk about education funding on a local level, but it's completely different when you're talking about it on a state level.
Yeah.
Still funding the same source, but different streams and different politics that are involved.
Yeah.
And I know education's been a big topic of yours, and I know it's one of your big things that you want to talk about, one of the big items in this election, despite what other people are saying. So, but before we get into all that, I just want to know a little bit about who is Rachel Chaleski.
Okay.
Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Okay, sure. I grew up in Warwick, Rhode Island. Decided to go to a school in New York. Met my husband there. Gravitated to the Hat City. We like the conveniences of a big city, and we love the community. The longer we lived here, the more we felt it. And we've moved several times within Danbury. And each time we moved, we considered other towns, but decided ultimately to stay in Danbury because we loved it so much. We wanted our kids to grow up here and, reap the benefits of, the many opportunities and the diversity, and it's a great place to raise a family. We considered other towns, and we have friends in other areas, but we loved it here, and despite, some of the old reputations of the schools, they're excellent schools. My kids are receiving an excellent education, and so that's how I became involved. Just wanted to learn about their day. Became involved with the PTO, and moved up from there.
Okay, so I know that education is one of your big topics that you like to talk about. Tell me what's your biggest concern when it comes to educational funding. I know we got to get off the local level. Let's talk about education funding on the state level. Why do you feel that we're not getting our fair share?
We haven't received our fair share for years, and that's no secret. It's been out there for a while. Back in 2016, when I first became involved, I went to a community forum that was hosted by the public schools. There was a presenter there from the Connecticut School Finance Project, Katie Roy. I don't know if you remember that. But that's where I first learned about the inequities within the state funding system. There are over 10 different formulas for how the state funds the different types of public schools, it's just incredibly convoluted. And the way we fund just traditional public schools is, I call it upside down and backwards. We're making progress toward, a more fair system, but it's slow. It's really slow, and it's not serving our kids who are here now. And, to fully fund in 2028 is the projected goal. Most of our kids will be graduated by then.
I hear a lot from people who say we're not getting enough state funding when they take Danbury, the city of Danbury, and they put it in comparison to like-minded cities, and you look at the comparison of funding on a state level, it's kind of astronomical, the discrepancy.
Yeah.
You see that as well?
Yeah, and it's hard to compare like cities. The State Department of Education actually got rid of district reference groups, the DERGs as they called them, because it's really not comparing apples to apples. We're not a wealthy city like Stamford and Norwalk, where we're commonly compared to. And then, you look at the towns that have been overfunded for years, and the message that I constantly hear from the state level is there's a greater concern for, those overfunded towns losing out on funds, more so than the towns that have been underfunded for so many years. It's a give and take, but really difficult decisions to make, but and those other towns too, I have to say, don't rely as much on state funding as like Danbury, a town like Danbury.
Yeah, and I remember whether it is Mark Boughton or Joe Cabo or Dean Esposito, I'm sure Mary's before that as well, would say that Danbury sends a lot of money up to Hartford. We're not far away from the Danbury Fair Mall. That's just like a generator. Even during the bad economic times in Connecticut, Danbury keeps turning that money back to Hartford, and we feel that we're not getting enough back in terms of state aid coming back.
Yes.
But another concern that has been of a lot of talk is the charter school. Which would, I guess, provide people another choice, and also somewhat alleviate the overcrowding situation in the school.
Yes.
At least that's what the advocates or the proponents of the charter schools say. Now, I know we're jumping a little bit to charter schools, but
that's all right.
tell me real quick, in just layman's terms for people who might not understand, why do you feel that a charter school is good for the city?
So, it's a public school, I have to say right off the bat. It's a public state charter school. There's, a lot of myths and misconceptions out there that just keep, regurgitating in the conversation around education in Danbury. And so that, adds to the confusion about them. Charters are actually they're designed by the state along with all the other types of different options. We have the state technical high school system, you have the vocational agriculture schools, open choice. They're all designed by the state to give families a menu of options, because not all kids learn the same way, and not one setting is ideal for everyone. My son is having, he's doing extremely well at the high school. But my daughter, I think, we're considering other options for her. She learns differently. She may need like a smaller setting. And so really the purpose behind a charter school is to raise student achievement. And they're only designed for alliance districts, which are the lowest performing districts. So only those districts can have a charter school.
One of the arguments that are being made by critics of the charter school is that it takes away local control. And I think you would say Henrietta Tech is something that's not under the purview of the Danbury Board of Education.
Exactly. And same with open choice. And for many of the arguments against charters, you can apply to those other types of schools that people aren't, alarmed by for some reason.
One of the arguments that was being made is that you're taking money away from the local school. I think I read in the paper what you said with a charter school,
Yes.
is that the number of individuals that are going toward the charter school versus the number of kids who are coming into the school system is virtually kind of like a wash.
Yes, we grow by 1 to 2% every year. So that's, roughly 100, 200 kids every year. And the funding for a charter there is funding out there that the traditional public schools can't tap into. They're designed specifically for charters. So this would be an infusion of education dollars. If you're looking at, they're all of our kids, whether they go to a charter or, a traditional school. So they would receive, their Danbury would receive full tuition amount. The Board of Ed would be obligated to provide transportation and special education services.
Now, in terms of transportation, aren't we doing the same thing right now with, let's say, with private schools?
Yes.
I know, like, my child goes to St. Gregory the
Yes.
Great. in Danbury Public
Absolutely,
Schools.
yes, we do transportation for all the private schools as well. But also, not all the students going to a charter would necessarily require transportation. This would be located downtown where we have a lot of walkers already. So I envision we would have a lot of walkers to that school. And also the special education piece of it, while we would be required to provide those services, we would be providing those services anyway if they were in the traditional school, just at including tuition. So really, it is a net increase for the city of Danbury when you look at tuition minus, the transportation and the special ed. And there's nothing as far as nurses or custodians, I think I read.
Yeah.
We're not required to pay for those things.
Ask you about it. We're not required to pay that.
We are not, no. And also, the charter school and the traditional public schools generally across Connecticut have a very good working relationship. So they're not trying to squeeze money from the traditional schools. I mean, their goal is really to provide something different for families and raise student achievement. We just had a data presentation at last night's Board of Education meeting, and we look at achievement scores every year, and every year it feels like we're having the same conversation. We do some things really well. There are areas where we need help. Our achievement scores at the elementary level are fine, but there's a huge drop, like abysmal drop, when you look at middle school. And we'll keep trying to raise student achievement, but it's certainly an area where we've struggled for a long time.
You've been on the forefront of this charter school issue because you've been advocating for this for a very long time with the proponents of the charter school. So you have some really first-hand knowledge of the resistance that's happened on the state level. So why don't you tell me a little bit about the struggle, or I shouldn't say struggle, but the fight you guys have done to try to get this charter school and the difficulties dealing with the state delegation seems pretty firm on saying no towards this proposal.
Very firm, and it's very disheartening when you try to talk with someone who's representing you, and you can just see it in their face that they're not interested in being persuaded or even listening to the facts or your concerns and your perceptions. So that's really some of the motivation behind why I decided to run. I hope to be just a voice, a true representation, as the role implies, for the people who live here. I will always endeavor to listen. I remember back in 2016 is when I first heard that there was a charter school coming to Danbury, and it was very hush-hush back then, and I didn't understand why, but I saw through my own kids' experience at the magnet school the benefits to choice, and just the good work that was happening there, and I saw it as a way, to kind of extend, that experience for Danbury kids. It's been a long a very long haul. So I'll never forget my first trip up to Hartford under the charter school advocacy group. I went there for, not just the charter, but also, still figuring out what's going on with education cost sharing for our traditional schools. At that time, we were, it was said that we were $30 million underfunded. I think we're still quite underfunded, but not so much so since the new formula started to be phased in. So just going up there several times, meeting with legislators, I will never forget those who listened and those who threw up their hands and said, nope, I don't like them, I just don't like them, and that was end of story. So certainly that is something that I'll never forget, and I'll always endeavor to listen. But we fought, we tried to educate the community around the facts, and at that time, when we were flat funded, it would just been a direct infusion of state education dollars to Danbury. So we lost out on that. Legislators at that time at the state legislature, it was pretty much split across parties. So there's more room for compromise, where there's at this point in time, no room for compromise. It's a one-party rule up there. So they can essentially pass what they want.
The other big elephant in the room is that we're coming out of COVID. COVID had a devastating impact, not only in the greater Danbury area, but across the state and across the nation. We're still trying to recover from that. Businesses have been strained, and people are still trying to get back on their feet. What do you think your role is as a state representative to bring relief to people who have been impacted by COVID?
Yeah, that's a great question. And certainly I hear that. That's probably like the top concern that I hear when I speak to folks at their home, is, how am I going to afford gas? How am I going to afford eggs? Yeah. I would work to support a fiscally responsible budget that grows the economy rather than hinders it. Connecticut bears the second highest tax burden in the country after New York. We continually tax. 2019 was especially hurtful. Right before the pandemic, we saw a whole slew of additional taxes or increased taxes. And so I would work to limit the tax burden on families and businesses, and not just temporary fix through election day. We need real sustained change. We need something to happen, for Connecticut. We're one of the few states that has the property tax, the income tax, the car tax, the gas tax. It's, and then you can look within those taxes, like the income tax, and how we have 7 brackets, I think it is. And we can use other states as models, as benchmarks to, kind of come up with a more permanent change rather than the temporary gas tax holiday.
Republicans have criticized the governor and the state delegation for the temporary fix to the gas, the temporary suspension of the gas tax, but you don't do anything for diesel.
Yes, they let the diesel go through. They let a highway use tax go through. There were several others that could have been addressed. There were proposals on the table to reduce the sales tax, to reduce the income tax, and those were rejected.
Now, I saw you up there in Hartford recently, you speaking on this topic as well as a bunch of others, and you talked about a contract for Connecticut.
Yes.
Do you follow that?
Contract with Connecticut.
Tell me a little bit about that, because you signed your name on the dotted line to that. So why don't you tell me a little bit about that, because that is your plan, that is your your delegation's plan, if you guys are elected, you're gonna implement it. So tell us a little bit about what this is all about.
So it's that affordability that we talked about, supporting a budget that's fiscally responsible, limiting the tax burden. It's also, keeping decisions locally around zoning.
Tell me your thoughts on local zoning and where do you strike the balance between affordable housing and the needs or the concerns of the community? I mean, you have a lot of municipalities here who have very, very low in terms of like affordable housing.
Yeah.
A lot of people can't get into these certain areas because it's mostly, single family dwellings. Not a lot of options to get into some of these areas. So, where do you strike the balance between this? Do you think there's an argument on both sides?
Yeah, for sure, definitely. It's exactly that. It's a balance, and you want to ensure that constituents' voices are heard when these decisions are made. That's what people are most passionate about. Just ensuring that they have a seat at the table, and when politicians are making those decisions on their behalf.
The 830G, I think it's called?
830G.
Do you think that should be repealed and replaced, or do you, what are your thoughts on that? Because Bob Stefanowski's talking about that a lot, and I hear a lot of people in the campaign trail talk about that.
I think there should be some kind of balance, and honestly, I need to do more homework on it. It's very different talking about it from a Danbury perspective and then versus a Bethel perspective.
Right.
So I would be open to hearing, from both sides of the argument.
The traffic is somewhat of a concern, especially in this area. Just give me your general thoughts on that, and I'm not going to ask you for any plan or your plan for it, but just give me your general concerns. Because you're walking around, you're knocking on doors, you're talking to people. I'm sure that traffic's got to be one of those issues that have to be talked about. Yeah,
it doesn't come up often, but it certainly comes up. The condition of our streets and our roads, and the 84 project, the long-awaited 84 project. So I would just like to be, a voice for improvements, and certainly open to hearing ideas, suggestions. I did speak to someone about the lights over the 84 and how that's a safety issue. So, and something I never thought about, but just happened to, talk to a neighbor. So I look forward to bringing those types of concerns to the state level.
These cameras right here represent the 138.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Why should they make a change from the current representation to you?
So I'm running to be a true voice for the people who live in the 138th. I feel that someone who votes almost 100% with his party all the time is not reflective of our values. I do not support the endless taxation and senseless spending that's happening at the state level. I would support a fiscally responsible budget, one that grows the economy. I would support our first responders. That was we didn't talk about the police accountability bill, but that was something that was, put through very, very rushed, against against a lot of opposition. And then education, of course, is, it's sad that it's taken so long for us to, even make progress toward receiving our fair share for education and just state funding in general.
Now, you touched on the police accountability bill. I got to get into that because that's another big topic, or else John Kaplinski will kill me. After the incidents with the George Floyd incident, the police counter bill
Yeah.
came about. It was met with some with opposition, and the Republican candidate for governor has promised to repeal the police accountability bill. Give me your thoughts on that bill, and give me your concerns about it.
Well, there were some aspects that were acceptable. There were others of major concern. So I don't think a total repeal is necessary. I think some amendments which were presented to legislators, as I understand, several times that were rejected. So I think, parts of that bill could be amended to address the concern. But in general, as it stands now, it's made the job of our police officers, more dangerous, more difficult, and just less appealing in a time where recruitment is difficult.
So you would not be in favor of completely repealing the whole thing, but just portions of it?
Correct. I think, we can all appreciate accountability. It's just to what level. And certainly we don't want to put the lives of police officers at risk, at any more risk. And we need to, support them in their difficult work.
All right, now another big topic that's obviously getting a lot of national attention is abortion. And a lot of state candidates, although the women's right to choose has been codified in this state, a lot of candidates are running for office are asked about their opinions on that subject. So what is your stance on abortion? Are you pro-life, pro-choice? Just give me your thoughts on that.
Sure. I hear that a lot at the doors. And I am pro-choice. I support the Connecticut laws as they are now, which protects a woman's right to choose, but restricts a late-term abortion unless to preserve the life or health of the expectant mother. I think I think that decision as a woman should be left to me and my doctor. And it's a moral decision, one that should be left up to the individual.
The last sales pitch here. Again, you're running for the 138. It's your first time running at state office. You've been knocking on a lot of doors. How are you enjoying this process?
It's a mixed bag.
Yeah, I'm sure
It's a learning curve. It is much different to run for a state position than a local position. But I truly love speaking with residents. I just love that one-on-one, listening to their concerns, their thoughts and ideas, and I learn a lot from that too. And so I look forward to, if elected, hosting town halls where, that continues beyond election day, so that I don't lose touch with the people who live here.
All right, well look, quick plug. If you want to find out more information about you, where can they find you on Facebook, campaign website, social media?
Yes.
Have at it.
Yes, I'm on Facebook, Rachel for Danbury's 138. I'm at Twitter, at Rachel Chaleski. My website is rachelfordanbury.com. I think that's it.
All right, well look, thanks a lot for your time.
Thank
Good
you.
luck. It's
Thank
almost
you.
over, hang in there. And then the holidays come on, so
Yes.
win or lose, thank you very much for being running for office. Because we need more people like this, because you are doing a very important thing in our government. You are representing the people, and that's a very big honor.
It is so important, and it's a tough job, but it's a job that I enjoy. And I hope to continue, being an advocate, being a voice, and to serve. I love it. I enjoy it. Thank you for this opportunity.